Hi, good afternoon, everyone. If you're joining us from the live, thanks for joining. And if you're looking at the recording of this, thank you for also dedicating your time to this. We're Critical English Grade 8. I am replacing Ms. Tamika for today, and I am happy to be here in her stead. With us, we have our regular students. We have Akila, Alia, and we have Shamar. So I hope they don't let me down with answering the questions that I have planned for them. So the topic for today is building on what Miss taught you last week about comprehension and how to read a comprehension passage. I know she did a lot of reading with you, plus you did the passage too, right? So I just want each of you to tell me one thing that you remember from the last class that you had with Miss. Just one thing, one sentence, not too much. We're going to start with Shamar first. I'm going to go over to Akila and then Alia.
The last thing with the time capsule?
Time capsule. So you remember the story about time capsule? Was it interesting?
Yeah.
Let's hear Akila.
Yeah, I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't here. All right. Well, you're going to learn about it later, I guess. Let's hear you, Alia.
It was fun to read it.
It was fun reading. Did you learn anything about how to read a passage a bit more clearer?
Yes.
Okay, so it's sometimes, it's not just one reading, and sometimes you read with a little bit more emphasis on details. So I'm going to show you what we have on the screen here. So it's comprehension, we're doing types of questions. And on the screen, you should be able to see three things that we have. I'm going to wait for the guy to pull it up for us in a minute. Okay, great. So what are you seeing on the screen there? An onion, exactly. That's in the center. What's on the right-hand side? Layers of?
Soil.
Oh, so we have soil on one hand and we have skin on the other hand, right? So what is one thing these three things have in common? Let's hear you.
They all have layers.
They all have layers, right? So you know our skin is the largest organ in the body, and it has different layers. The outside layer is called the epidermis, and then you have the dermis, then you have other stuff going on. Then you have the soil with the top soil and the different levels of soil. With the onion as well, you have the skin, then you have the different layers when you're chopping it, right? When you chop an onion, usually what happens with your eyes?
Water.
Good, fills up with water, and sometimes people think you're crying, right? But you're just chopping onions. Good. So why am I talking about layers? Because questions as well, there are different types of questions and they have different layers. So some questions are easier to answer because the answer is right there, and some questions you have to think before answering. For example, if I ask you your name, will that be an easy question? That will be a very easy question because you already know it, right? So that will be called a knowledge type question. Then I have a comprehension question. If I ask you, do you know what your name means? You have to think about that, right? Then there's an application one now. So for example, let's say your name means lighter, princess or something. Then it suggests then that your parents want you to be this type of person, right? To be treated like a princess, to be royalty, or if your name probably meant shine, they wanted you to do your best and do good things, etc., right? So those are different kinds of questions. So as we go on here, we have our topic for the passage will be about airplanes. How many of you have traveled in an airplane before? Nobody as yet? Helicopter? How many have you seen a movie with an airplane? That should be everybody, right? Yeah? Good. So pretty much we know what airplanes are, right? If you haven't been in one, you've seen what it looks like. And I was playing a song earlier, and some of you said you know the song. So those are some of the lyrics in the song, and the blue part that's there. I can't sing. If I could have, I would have, but I really don't want rain to fall this afternoon, so I'm not going to sing. So we already answered the other question, and we answered the other one too. Good. So we answered all of those. So we have an idea of what our passage will be about. And here is the passage. So since it's three of us, we're going to share the reading again. We started with Shamar just now, so we're going to end with Shamar this time. It's three sets of things to read. We're going to ask Alia to start our reading.
Airplanes have the reputation of being dangerous, and even hardened travelers are imitated by them.
Intimidated? The whole page.
They also have the grave disadvantage of being the most expensive form of transport but nothing can match them for speed and comfort. Traveling at height of 30,000 feet, far above the clouds and over 500 miles an hour, is an exhilarating experience. You don't have to devise ways of taking your mind off the journey, for an airplane gets you to your destination rapidly.
Thank you very much. So we're going to talk a little bit about this before we read the next paragraph. So this one is obviously about airplanes, right? The first sentence says that they have a reputation of being dangerous and some people can be scared of them. So the other word for scared that we have there is, what's the other word for scared in the first sentence? You getting it, Akila? What's it? What's
Intimidated.
Intimidated, exactly. So it's just a bigger word for a small word like scary. And then we also talk about the disadvantages. What are some of the disadvantages there? So since Aliyah read, we're going to ask the questions to the other two, right? So Shamar, looking at the second sentence there, what are some of the disadvantages of traveling in an airplane?
They're more expensive than other.
Definitely. If you were to take a bus, it will be far cheaper than taking an airplane, right?
Yes.
Good. So it's expensive. Anything else is there? That was one of them, right? It doesn't state anything else in terms of disadvantage. The other things it stated are advantages. So there is a big word there, accelerating. What does that one mean?
Like speed or fast.
So it's going fast. So because it's going fast, it's exciting. So you notice the word sounds a bit like exciting, right? So if you have an exhilarating experience, it's an exciting experience. And the other one, the other last sentence there talks about you do not have to devise ways of taking your mind off the journey, for an airplane gets you to your destination rapidly. In other words, you really wouldn't mind traveling because you know you're going to get there eventually. And the next paragraph will discuss some things that you can do while you're traveling. So we're going to ask Akila to read this for us, please.
For a few hours, you settle back in a deep
armchair
to enjoy the flight. The real escapist can watch a flea film show and sip a hot or cold drink on some services. But even when such refreshments are not available, there's plenty to keep you occupied. An airplane offers you to an unusual, breathtaking view of the world. You soar effortlessly over high mountains and deep valleys. You really see the shape of the land.
Thank you so much for your reading. So we know it's a new paragraph because it introduces a different idea and it also has the indentation. So when you're writing your stories or your expository pieces, you also have the indent to show you're starting a new paragraph. So according to this paragraph that was just read, remember the two of you will answer the questions, right? Shamar and Aliyah. So the first thing that it says here is what? When you're traveling for a few hours, where are you sitting?
In a deep armchair.
Good, deep armchair to enjoy the flight. Let's say you're sitting in the middle though and there are two persons next to you. Do you think you're going to be very comfortable there? The middle seat?
No.
If you're sitting in a bus, is the middle seat a nice seat? No, so it's the same with an airplane too. But if you get the window seat, would that be a good seat?
Yeah.
Why? Why would that be a good seat? Because the window, obviously, what are you going to do? You're going to see. And it's a airplane that's in the sky. So what will you be seeing?
The world.
The world. And what are some things, some definite things that you'll be seeing out of a window in the sky?
Oceans.
You'll be seeing ocean at the bottom, yeah. And at the top there, what will you be seeing?
Clouds.
Clouds, exactly. And the sun, perhaps. And blue, just blue, blue, blue stuff, right?
But who is looking to the sun?
I'm not going to answer that. I'm already wearing glasses. Exactly. So some of the things that it mentions that people can do while they're sitting in the plane on their flight are what?
Drink beverages.
Drink beverages, and they can also watch what?
Shows.
Good. Watch a show or a movie, right? So some flights, it's free, and some flights you have to pay extra money if you want these things. So not all of them would do that. And what are we talking about? What else does it offer? We already said breathtaking view of the world, right? Because we said ocean, you can see the ocean, you can see the sky, you can see the stars, the clouds, sorry. And if you're traveling at night, what will you be seeing when you're looking down and you're about to land?
Lights.
Lights, definitely. Good. You soar effortlessly over high mountains and deep valleys. Will you always see mountains though if you fly?
No.
If it's not a mountainous region, obviously you won't see any mountains, right? But if you go from Guyana to Latam or so forth, you will be seeing mountains because Guyana has a lot of mountains along that stretch there. And deep valleys. You really see the shape of the land. So are we getting a sense of what people are experiencing when they're in an airplane?
Yes,
Good. So we know some things that they can do and blah, blah, blah. So let's go to our next paragraph now. And obviously, Shamar, this is yours.
if the landscape is hidden from view, you can enjoy the extraordinary sight of unbroken clouds, plains that stretch out for miles before your while
I think it's supposed to be your before you.
before you while the sun shines
Brilliantly.
brilliantly in a clear sky. The journey is so smooth that there is nothing to prevent you from reading or sleeping. However, you decide to spend your time. One thing is certain, you will arrive at your destination fresh and uncrumpled. You will not have to spend the next few days recovering from a long and or
Arduous flight journey.
arduous journey.
Thank you. Good. So we're talking about, again, what you're seeing. We already talked about clouds in the previous one, but in this one here, they call them unbroken clouds, plains that stretch out for miles, the sun shining brilliantly in the clear sky. So basically, they make it seem as if it's like a journey, a wonderful journey, like nothing bad can go wrong, right? And the journey is so smooth. And according to the second sentence that's there, what is something else you can do apart from looking at movies or drinking beverages?
Reading or sleeping.
Reading or sleeping. Good. Which one do you think you'll be doing if you take an 8-hour flight? Sleep. I'll definitely sleep too. Good. So however you spend your time, you're going to reach there fresh and uncrumpled. Basically, that happens for some persons. They look really, really nice when they come out the plane. And then you have persons like me, like I will look like so exhausted and so tired. And yeah, I don't look the best when I may leave home looking fresh, but get there and I look all tired and drained and whatnot. So I guess for some persons, they can arrive to their destination fresh, right? And for some persons too, they have to rest afterwards because they get something called jet lag. Because remember, you're moving in space basically, right? And you're moving from one spot to the other. So your body still have to get accustomed, or the word is acclimatized to the movement of your mass from one space to the other. So some people get something called jet lag and they get really tired, and some people even feel nauseated. But then you have some persons who don't experience that and everything is fine for them. I'm so jealous of them. Anyway, so those are our paragraphs that we had to read. And we're going to skip a bit from the passage and look at the type of questions that we talked about earlier. So remember we were talking about when we ask someone for their name, that's a knowledge question because they already know the answer. And when you ask them for the name meaning, that's something else. So let's look at the first type. The first one here is knowledge type questions. And these are some words that are used. And you may see these words in your exams from time to time. They may say define the term. What? Give me an example. Define.
Germination.
Germination. Good. That's a science question, right? Define the term germination. So basically, all you have to do is what? Remember, right? If you cram for the exam, you'll be able to answer that question because the answer was already given to you, right? What about this one? Who? For example, if it's a story and they're like, who is the main character in the story? The answer is already in the story. All you have to do is talk who they talk about most. That's the character, right? What about what? Give me a question that might have what starting it off.
What happened in the movie?
What happened in the movie? Good. It has to be a little bit more specific though, because if you talk about the whole movie, that's not just one simple thing, right? To talk about the whole movie, you have to summarize it. So it depends on how the what question is asked. Then we have list. If we ask list all the students in your class, easy peasy, right? You can list everybody if you have the register in front of you, right? Easy peasy. We have locate, match, select, underline. All of those things can be answered by just looking at the passage that was given. If I ask you to say, for example, if we're doing synonyms and I say match this word with the word closest to it, and the word is what? We had one that we discussed earlier, scary, I think it was, and we matched that to intimidating earlier, right? So if the passage said that the scary is another word for intimidating, and I ask you to match the words, then that is an example of knowledge type questions, because you simply look back at what you had and the answer is right there. So do you think you can get these questions easily and get all your marks for it? If you're asked this, all you have to do is do what? Look back at the passage. Simple. So let's look at the next one that we have there. It's comprehension. So do you think this is easier than that just now, or it's a little bit more difficult? It's a little bit more difficult. You have to, what are some of the terms we have there? Explain, interpret, outline, discuss. So let's look at just those four to start off with. If you're asked to explain something, do you get some of the information from the text? Yeah. If I ask you to explain what a journey on a plane is like, you get the information from the text, but you have to put it in such a way that it answers the question. So comprehension questions are basically going a little bit deeper. It's using the ideas from the passage, yes, but you have to add your own interpretation to it. So it's not just going to be, what is this? And then you say what it is and end of story. You got to go a little deeper. We have restate, describe, identify, which, and summarize. So remember just now you were saying about what was the movie about? So that summarizing skill there will come out in the comprehension type question if you're asked to summarize something. For example, a movie might be 1 hour long, but if your friend asks you to tell them what the movie was about, will you spend 1 whole hour talking about the movie? No, you can just say, oh, this man shoot up this person come back for revenge, and he shoot he back, and it's movie done. That's a summary, right? I don't know which movie is that, but that could be a summary of your movie. So let's see if we can come up with a question on explain. Think about the airplane passage and use the word explain to ask a question about that passage. So we're going to come back to that. So that's what we're going to do as the ending activity, right? We're going to be creating questions for these various types. And this is a skill that will help you when you're doing any exams or so forth. But can we also use this in social studies and science and so forth? Yes. Yeah, because once you understand what they're asking for, you will give them just that. For example, in social studies, if you're asked to list all the natural regions in Guyana, will you have to write long, long sentences? Yeah. All you got to say the 4 natural regions are, and you list them, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? End of story. That's knowledge type question. If they ask you to explain each type of natural region, that would be an comprehension type question. What about an application question? Now, that's the next one we're going to go into. The application type question. Y'all thought I was going to give it to you, right? I want you to guess this one. Any one of you. So we have knowledge, we have comprehension. What's the next level? Application. What does it mean? Yes, I like asking these complex questions. So give me a shorter word for application.
Apply.
Apply. So what does it mean if you have to apply for something? For example, if you want a job, what do you have to do? Apply. You can't just show up and say, give me the job. You have to apply and request to have the job, right? So application means that you got to put forth some kind of effort into it. So it's not just saying back exactly what they tell you. It's using what you have learned and putting it to use in a different situation. You guys do agri at school?
Do what?
Agri? Agri-science? Agricultural science?
Yes.
What's one topic you did in agri? Sows?
Poultry.
Poultry. Okay, let's say you learned about poultry. Did you do the part about the egg development and so forth?
Yes.
Fertilized egg and so forth, and how to identify a rooster from a hen and those things? Okay, good. So an application type question would be, what? If you would like to rear layer birds, what kind of environment will you put them in? That's an application question, right? The answer will not be in the book, but when you did the class, you learned that they have to be warm and blah, 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 blah. So you now have to put what you learned about poetry from class and create that scenario where you can use that knowledge. Or it's let's say a math question. And they say, Tom went to the market and bought 100 bananas. Let's say he wants to share the bananas to his friends, and he wants to give his friends a ratio of 25. I think I'm saying it wrong. Let's just say he wants to give his friend 25%, his friends, and he has 4 friends. Do the math for me. I know we're doing math just now. If you divide 100 in half, it will be 50-50. If you divide 50 by half, it will be 25-25. So he has 4 friends. So how many bananas will he give each of his friends if he has 100? And he's sharing it equally among them.
25 each.
25 each. So that's application there, right? It's not just saying what do we mean by division. It's not what we mean by percentages. It's applying that knowledge that you have of percentage and division and so forth and applying it in a new situation. So these words that we're learning, it's not just for English, it's for all the subjects I can possibly think of. So we were on application type questions, right? Look at some of the verbs that are used for this. It's going to come on the board in a few minutes. Let's see if we can think about it in those ways. So the first one that I have on my screen here is solve. So you see that a lot in science questions, right? And you see that a lot in math questions. You have to solve problems. Can you think of another subject area that you have to solve things? Social studies, maybe? They may say what? The problem is what? Garbage. How can you solve the garbage problem that Georgetown has? And you now have to write about what you will do if you were the mayor of Georgetown or something, right? So that's application right there. This is use, predict, construct, perform, demonstrate, classify, and apply. Now I want to touch a little bit on the one classify there. So classify, do we know what it means? You did science, right? Where you did vertebrates and invertebrates, and then you had to break those down into different groups. So you have mammals, what else? You have reptiles, amphibians, what else? I'm bringing back all your common interest knowledge here. What are some others that you can remember? Fish. What's the other one? Birds. Yes, birds. I wasn't hearing. And we can even break that down further to some cold-blooded animals and some whatever, right? So all those different things. So once you start putting things into groups, you're doing application there. For example, you learned about monocotyledon and dicotyledon. So those are types of seeds, right? And some of them have 1 and some of them have 2 cotyledons together for the thing to grow, right? For the seed to grow. So let's say your teacher gives you a bunch of seeds and she says, group them into monocotyledon and dicotyledon. She's asking you to classify, and you have to actually do that, right? For math, how do you do that? How do you classify things in math? What topic can you think of? I know I'm having your brain going all over the place there, right? What about Venn? All right, Venn diagram, how is that going? Venn diagram, don't you put similar things together? All the boys in class who play football and all the boys who play cricket and those who play football and cricket go in the middle? Classifying also there. So all that are application type questions. So let's go back to our passage. Oh, I'm missing okay, I missed one of my questions there. There's supposed to be 1 and 2. Anyway, let's go to the 2. Select the options of things that a person can do when in flight. Remember we were talking about the airplane thing? So first of all, identify the type of question this is. Is this knowledge? Is this comprehension? Or is this application? First of all, can we find that information in the passage that we read? Yes. We don't have to think a lot about it, right? It's right there. So that tells us it is what type of question? What are our 3 types that we talked about? The first was knowledge, comprehension, application. So if it's found in the passage, then this means this is a Which was the easiest?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. So it is a knowledge type question, right? So can we answer this question? What are some of the things the person can do when they're on the flight? Watch a movie, enjoy the sights outside, reading and sleeping, or all of the above?
All about.
All of the above. So we can answer this question very easily because we understood what the passage was. Remember we talked about it a bit? So some students go into an exam and they read the question first and then try to find the answer in the passage. Is that the wisest thing to do? No, you have to, once you understand what your passage is saying, they could bring whatever question they want to bring and you'll be able to answer it. All right, so we have two other things to do. Create a comprehension question. So using the word summarize, create a question for me based on the passage. What is one question you can ask from the passage? Summarize. No? Too difficult? You need some help? Yeah? I think you have the answer. No? Okay, summarize the passage. That's easy as it gets. Right? Summarize the passage because you don't want to think too much. So summarize the passage and somebody will just have to tell you how many points we had. We had 3 points because it's 3 paragraphs, right? So just say 3 things about it and that's a summary right there. And the final one is application, right? Application questions. Remember the verbs we had for this one? So what is one question we can ask using one of those words about the passage? All right, let's go ahead, Alia.
Use more than or less than to answer the questions down below.
Okay, use more than or less than. So you have to figure out which one to use, right?
Yeah.
To get it. Very good. And if we're talking about airplanes, perhaps we could probably say, how about this one? Classify. Classify the types of things you can do on an airplane. So some of them are reading, sleeping, eating, drinking, and watching things, right? So depending on what you like, you may have to put what you can do into different categories. So maybe we can call one category needs and one we can call wants. You drink because you have to drink to stay alive, right? So that's a need. What could be a want there?
Something you want to drink.
Like something you want to drink. So you don't have to drink Pepsi, but you want to drink it, right? So that's a want. So we'll classify it under those things. Good. So you see, was that hard? Easy peasy, right? So let's review what we did. We talked about 3 types of questions. The first one was knowledge, and the answer can be found in the paragraph, in the passage, in the story, in the movie, whatever the case is. We also spoke about comprehension. And this one, the answer is found in the passage, but you have to do a little bit of thinking to get it out there. So sometimes, some people will say you got to read between the lines. Good. For example, let's say your mom asks you to wash wares and you didn't wash the wares. This is my favorite example, by the way. And she come home and you didn't wash the lady wares and the lady vexed. Does she have to tell you she is vexed because you didn't wash the wares? Well, would you figure out why? So that's using your comprehension skills to figure out, oh yeah, that's why she's vexed because I didn't do X, Y, or Z. So the same way you can figure that out with her having to tell you why she's mad at you. The same way you have to look at the passage and read between the lines and figure out, that's what they're trying to say. The other one that we did was application type questions where you have to apply the knowledge that you got from the text to a new situation. So think of it like a transfer. You have power banks to charge your phones and so forth. So you're transferring the power from the power bank to your phone. So you're using what you have here in another situation or scenario. Like how we talk about maths and all those different things just now. We're using English skills to help you understand mathematical concepts, scientific concepts, and even social studies concepts. So that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for being such great students with me today. I'm going to hand you over to your math teacher in a few minutes. And see you guys next week. Toodle.
Good afternoon again, students, and welcome to Critical Mathematics, grade 7 to 8. And I know you just came out from a English class where you were doing things like knowledge, comprehension, and application, I think. All right, so even with that, we're going to be applying some of that in mathematics, even as Miss said, that the subjects do relate to each other, right? So first of all, for our knowledge, could somebody please remind us what was done at the last class? Shamar.
From last week Friday,
Yes.
we did algebraic expression grouping. We grouping them.
Okay, grouping in the algebraic expression. Could you remember what was done in the last class, Akila? No, because you weren't there. And you didn't review your work either. Okay, that will remind you to do so. Analia? Anything about the last class? Nothing? Oh my. Well, this is where knowledge comes in, where we must revise what we did at any of the classes that you would be having, and you must practice, especially in maths. So we were looking at algebraic terms and algebraic expression, addition and subtraction. The previous class before that, we identified the different types of the terms. So if I'm to give you an example, 2x squared plus 4. Can anyone say to me what the 2 represents? The term? Shamar, could you help us?
The constant.
The 2 is the constant. Anyone else want to help?
The coefficient.
The coefficient. The 2 would be the coefficient. Anybody could tell me about the 4?
A constant.
The 4 would be the constant. Reason being, it's standing alone. It's the number standing by itself. The coefficient is standing with a letter that is called a variable. This here we have the variable. Good. And what about the little 2, the floating 2?
Square or degree.
A square or degree. Okay, it's called a degree, or it can say a power. Or you can have an exponent. Good. So, we have all the different parts that makes up the expression, and we have the different terms. 2x squared is a term by itself, and 4 is a term by itself. So we have 2 terms. Why?
Because they're separated.
Because they're separated. Anyone else want to try? Why would you say that 2x squared is one term and the 4 alone is another term? Akila?
The 4 doesn't have any variables or power.
All right, that is correct. But give me another explanation. Simpler than that one. One word begins with a D. Talia? Not sure?
Not sure.
Because 2x squared is different to 4. They're not like terms. So because they're not like terms, can we add Shamar to Alia, what would we get?
Alia plus Shamar.
Alia plus Shamar. Can we get Alia Shamar? No, because the two different. One is a boy and one is a girl, right? So because the terms are not alike, we will have to leave it, identify it as two different terms. Understood? Good. So we know the parts, we know the terms. We did the last class, as I said, we did the addition and the subtraction. And this is for knowledge sake. So we have 4x squared plus 2x squared minus 3y. Can we add 4x squared to 2x squared?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're both the same. They're like.
Correct. Thank you. They are like terms. So we have 4x squared plus 2x squared will give us 6x squared. Right? Because we're just adding 4 of something and 2 of something. What do we do with the 3y?
We just put it back.
Why?
Because they're different terms.
It's a different term, right? So maybe this, we have 6 hexagon here or something here, and we have 3 yams, right? So we cannot add the subtract the yams from the hexagon or something like that, right? So that is just for recap purposes, and that is what we did. That is your previous knowledge, right? So today we're going to be looking at multiplication and division, just the other two basic operation that we have. We know what multiplication and division looks like, right? Do we know how to multiply or divide basic numbers? Okay, 2 multiplied by 2? 4. Right? So in algebraic was one of the main things that will give you the idea that the sum is algebraic.
It has a letter or a power.
It has a letter and a number or just letters alone. The power, not that important. Right? So we have 2x multiply by 2x. Good? So we're actually saying, right, that we have 2 multiplied by 2 the coefficient, and for the variables, how many x's you have there? 2 x's. So we have 1x plus another x. Agree? So what would we get here?
4.
2 2's?
4.
1 plus 1?
2.
2. So our answer now becomes 4x squared. You realize when we were adding or minusing, we did not add the powers of the x's because there is an invisible one here and an invisible one here. We don't have to write it because you're seeing 1x. Right? So do you think you understand this one?
Yes, yes.
Let's try another example. 5y multiply by 3y squared. Akila, could you tell me what to do next?
5 times 3.
5 times 3.
Which is 15.
Next.
And then you put back the y.
Y. Because this is the only variable we're working with.
Then 1 plus
1 of the y plus.
the other y.
What do you see there?
A 2.
2. So in this case, we had 1x and 1x. In this case, we have 1y and 2y's, right? So we're adding the powers. So that will give us 5 3s? 15. Y
The third power.
to the third power. 50y to the third power, right? Because we are multiplying. We multiply the coefficients and we add the powers of the, what do we call the letters? Variables, right? So we're going to increase the multiplication. Then we're going to look at some division. We okay with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want to copy this? Copy it quickly. In 1 minute. Every number and every letter, use 1 second to write it. All right, no problem. As soon as you finish, please say aye. You would notice that our variables, as I said earlier, are the same. And from your English class, this would be application, because we are working out the problem or we are solving it, right? So we applying the basic operation and we're solving the problems. Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. So let's add to the multiplication, because every step we are going a bit higher. What do we notice?
They all have different variables.
We all have different variables, right? So when we had the same variables, what did we do with the power?
We add them.
Add the power. But because they have different variables, we cannot add the power, right? These are like different families. It's like if you're taking this family and putting them with this family, also with this family. So you're putting all of them together in one room, right? So you know it's jumbling everybody together, but they will still remain as the different family. Good? Maybe this surname is different to this one and different to this one. But now we're multiplying the number of persons basically. So what do we do multiply? 7
times 2
by 2
times 3
times 3. What else could I put here instead of multiplication? What symbol? Anyone remember? All right, not to worry. But remember we had a dot too? Means multiplication. All right, good. So now I will write back the variables because we cannot put them together. Right? So our answer now would become 7 2s? 14 by 3. Okay, let's go. 14 by 3. 3 4s? 12. 3 1s?
3,
And 1?
4,
So 14 by 3?
42.
Are we sure? Sure?
Yes, miss.
All right. Just making sure that we are sure. So I will write the letters according to alphabetical in alphabetical order. Which letter goes first?
X.
X, square,
Y,
Y, square, and z. Good? So our answers remain like this because we cannot do anything with the powers and the different variables. Good? Do we understand that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Could we have one last multiplication? Please give me a multiplication sum. Someone? Anyone? Or all?
5.
5.
5A.
5a. That's all for you?
Yeah.
Next person?
8 times
8.
8c
8c. C alone?
to the second.
To the second power. Akila?
2b.
2b.
Oh, just a.
All right, no problem. Good. What do we do first?
We put
Put the number
I'm listening.
5
5
plus
times
Plus?
no
times 8 times 2.
Good. Next.
We put A,
A.
C to the second power,
So we don't add anything here.
no,
Okay, C, second power,
and B.
and B. Right? Next. What do we do next?
Multiply.
Multiply.
5
Can't we add? Why not?
because there's a multiplication.
Because the operation
It's multiplication.
is multiplication. Thank you. 5 8,
40.
40. 40 by 2.
80.
Very good. Letters.
A,
A,
B,
B,
C to the second.
C to the second power. Very well. You want to copy that quickly? No? You'll get it back later. However, your work will be sent to you. All right, good. So are we okay with multiplication here?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool? Sure, sure? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up. Good, just a thumbs up. All right. So what we're going on to next?
Division.
Division. Okay, division, it's kind of the opposite of the multiplication. So my division, 10m to the fourth power divided by 5m to the second power. Good? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to make the division showing the numerator and the denominator. Right? Because 10 is divided by 5. What variable we using? M. Only M. Agree? Only M. When we were multiplying, what did we do with the power?
We add them.
So now that we are dividing, what do you think we should do with the power?
Subtract.
We subtract them. So we have 4 minus 2. Right? I'm going to show you the expanded one in a bit. Good. So what do we say here? 5 into 10?
2.
Sure?
Yes, ma'am.
5 can go into 10 2 times? 5, 10. How many you have? 2. 2. So I can say 5 into 5, 1. 5 into 10, 2. So what do we have? 2. And this is 2 over 1.
Yes.
Right? But the 1 don't have any value at the bottom. So we can leave the 2 alone. So we have m to the second power. All right, let me show you the expanded version. 10m to the fourth power divided by 5m to the second power would be the same as 10 over 5. How many m's you have there?
10.
No, how many m's?
4.
We have m by m by m by m. How many m's at the bottom?
2.
M by m. So just as how we can cancel 5 into 5, 1, 5 into 10, 2, m cancel m. Seen it? M cancel m. How many m's we have remaining?
2.
And remember when we started and we had the 2 letters, we say we're going to add the powers? to know that how many letters we have. So 1 plus 1 is?
2.
So we have m square. Following? Who not following? Be brave. Alia, not following? Following? Sure. So I can give you one now. All right, good. So this is our division. Remember, we're dividing the numbers, the coefficient, and we are subtracting the powers of the variables. Right? Okay. So could I take this? Have you digested this well?
Yes.
Sure? All right. Could I give you larger numbers? Okay, let's go. 14 x squared y to the 4th power divided by 2 x y squared. We work it together, no problem. What do I write?
14.
14 divided by 2, or we say over 2.
And
X to the second power.
X to the 2nd power.
oh,
Divided by.
Sure?
Oh.
What do we do with the power when we're dividing?
Subtract.
So, minus
what?
1, because it's only 1x over here. Then we have the y.
Y to the
4th power minus
2.
2. Good. So that will give us an answer of
7.
2 into 14.
7. X.
X.
X alone.
And y to the second
And
power.
y to the 2nd power. And there is nothing else we can do with this answer because they have no other operation that needs to be done. And we cannot combine x and y square just making one thing. Right? If we had x and x alone, then we would have just seen x to a power. But we have 2 different variables, 2 different sets of family. So despite the 2 sets of family are in one house, they are still different. Okay? So your example, your question, and then we wrap up. You okay here, right?
Yes, miss.
All right. So let's look at this one. A p to the 5th power multiply by 2p to the 3rd power multiply by 3q to the 4th power. Good? Divided by 4p to the 4th power q to the 2nd power. Let's try working it together. What would you write first?
8.
8
Times
times
2
2
times 3.
times 3, very well. Divided by
Best we can see.
4.
4. Good, great. Next,
P.
p
5.
to the 5th power plus
3.
3. Why are we adding?
Because we were multiplying.
We're multiplying, the operation's multiplying.
Divided.
And Q.
Before that, we don't have any other p's.
Divided by. No, subtract.
Subtract
By 4.
4. Then we have q,
To the 4th
4th power.
Subtract
it
by 2.
Great. So let's go. Do we have anything that we can cancel down? 4 can go into anything here?
8.
4 into 8. 4 into 4, 1. 4 into 8?
2.
2. So what we have here? 2 twos?
4.
4 threes?
12.
12. So we have 12. P?
8, 4.
5 plus 3?
8.
8 minus 4?
4.
4. 4 P's? 4 minus 2?
2.
2. So we have 2 Q's. So we had a combination of multiplication and division. When we are multiplying in algebraic terms, what do?
And
We add the
power.
power of the
Variable.
variables. What do we do with the coefficient?
We multiply.
Or we divide the coefficients, right? What if the variables were different?
We believe it as it is.
Good. If the variables are the same, we add the powers. But when we add in or minus in, do we do that? Do we add the powers? If we add in or minus in algebraic terms, do we add the powers? No. We don't add the powers, but we have to ensure that we group the like terms together to add. Right? So, do you think you were following the addition and subtraction, multiplication and division of the algebraic terms?
Yes, Miss.
Please give me one term, the name of one term. Akila? One of the terms that we would have learned. We started with it. All right, Shamara, give me one. I'll come back to Akila.
Which term is
Any one of the terms that you would have learned.
addition?
No, that is the operation.
The terms.
We started with the terms. We identified the terms.
Coefficient.
We have the coefficient,
Variable.
variable,
Power.
and the power. We have the constant also. The operation is the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Right? You know, sometimes some people need to be prompt to remember something. So it's okay, Akila. Right? But just next time we will be on our game. Right? So here we have we did the addition, the subtraction, the multiplication, and division of algebraic terms. And I hope that you understood all well. You practice and you put it to work. Right? And remember, as Miss would have said to you, the application, even the comprehension and the knowledge is important for you to remember. You know those terms, you apply it to mathematics, and you will be able to go through successfully. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your cooperation, and we hope to see you at the next session. Do enjoy and good afternoon.